Folks, thanks so much for tuning in for the weekend look at the week ahead. I promised I would get this to you, and even though, excuse me, it's late Saturday night, we're going ahead with this and giving you a quick snapshot for the week ahead. Number one, I'm telling you, this is going to be, I think, it could be the wildest yet Davos meeting. As you know, these Davos meetings takes place once a year. Some people say they are great. Others say they are, a shadow of time to come, future world government and all that type of thing. It was at Davos over the years that the climate agenda has been imposed upon countries around the world, and now with more and more evidence coming out that maybe the planet is not going to burst into flame as people thought. A lot of different scientific studies coming out, and even different countries kind of having doubts about the strictness of the environmental situation and what's backdropping that, or it's going to jump right into the forefront. Watch this week. It's going to be big. This is, first of all, the biggest turnout ever. 850 CEOs going to be showing up, 3,000 participants. President Zelensky is going to be there from Ukraine. But the big news, of course, is going to be President Trump bringing the largest delegation ever from the United States to the Davos meetings. He is scheduled right now to speak on Wednesday. You want to watch that, because my sense is he's going to blow a big hole into a lot of the so-called climate agenda stuff. And he'll be making a case that, in fact, things like the exploration for lithium and all of the rare minerals that are required to produce everything from solar panels to windmills and everything else are in fact hurting the world more than anything, and certainly keeping people in poverty. He'll be talking about how natural gas and energy products like that are the best approach to reducing poverty and also reducing global emissions. So watch for a big demonstration. Could get very feisty over there at Davos in Switzerland. No neutrality there on Wednesday. It's a kind of interesting, the title is called Spirit of Dialogue. That's the theme, but with that being the theme, keep in mind that you're going to have Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, also going to be speaking there. And of course, he's made it pretty clear he wants to be running for president, and he'll be taking direct shots at President Trump. But he's going in with a bit of a backstop now, or a backdrop of allegations of massive, gigantic fraud, more so even than the fraud they're finding now in Minnesota. So it's going to be some tough sledding for Governor Newsom. He's also going to be up against, I believe what you're going to be hearing, check me on this after the conference, but I think President Trump is going to use that platform to talk about some of his economic policies. For instance, these policies get buried with all the other kind of news that the cultural Marxists bring out, but you might be hearing him talking about the birth accounts, the money that gets put into a savings account for every child born in the United States. I believe it's going to be $1,000, and how by the time they're 18, that will have risen to quite a bit of money, especially the fact that parents and grandparents can chip in. So look at President Trump talking about other economic policies, doing that in a way to try and educate the world, which seems to only want to embrace leftist policies which tend to stifle economies and make all people poorer. So watch for that. Iran is going to be huge again this week. Are they going to stop? Have the killings really stopped? Is it 12,000? Is it 20,000? There are more of them hanging by cranes all the time. And the thing that we need to realize when we're looking at this, when you're dealing with an adversary, it's always worse if your adversary is actually insane or unbalanced. And in this case, that is the case for the extreme Islamist rulership of Iran with the Ayatollah and the different mullahs. And as they say so well, as extreme Islamists will tell us, they say they're going to win the world battles because we who are not Islamist, we fear death, but they embrace death. They love death. And they say that is their not so secret sauce. So watch for what's going to be happening in Iran. The only way you're really going to, the demonstrations are necessary. What I hope that Trump and others, even maybe in the European community, are doing is contacting the key people in the regime. This would be below the level of the Ayatollahs, and offer them a way out. We all know that anytime you have an animal that's cornered, they become very ferocious if they are convinced there's no way out. Give them a way out. Reach out to some of these high-level operators in Iran, offer them millions of dollars, offer them safe third country travel. That can help to destroy the regime. Other than that, it's going to be ongoing an awful lot of blood on the floor and blood on the ground. Well, talking about blood on the ground, if you're concerned about how liberal governments continue to bring in policies that actually create more crime and create more harm, probably not going to get a better case than the one recently in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Another case where a man murdered his gay lover, did it with a hammer and stabbing him. And I say he killed him because this is not alleged. This did go to court, and the judge just ruled. See, what happens here is when parliamentarians, when elected people hear more and more from the public that these light sentences, and we're talking about for violent repeat offenders, when these sentences stay light, it just makes a mockery of life, and we need to have tougher sentences. And so a number of countries and provinces and states, they pass what's called mandatory term incarceration. So the judge doesn't then normally have the leeway to grant always the minimum sentence. So the case was here, the individual was found guilty of murder, and in this particular situation, the law requires that it's a mandatory life sentence. The judge, however, was able to deke around the law, basically flaunt it and find ways to moderate things. He went from some of the testimony of the defense lawyer for Mr. Kimach, who was the murderer here, and the defense lawyer was making the case that, really it wasn't the murderer's fault because he grew up with a tough childhood, and that can happen with people. That's always tragic. There was talk about inter-family sexual trauma when this guy was growing up. So that may well be the case, but does it take away the ability of someone to control himself from cold-blooded murder? The other thing the judge said was, since the man who killed the gay lover was a First Nations individual, then the defense also said that the issue of the colonization of indigenous people would have had some effect on the murderer's brain. And the judge must have listened, because it winds up, he says, you can get a parole possibly in 11 years. So when you hear a judge say life sentence, it is often not that. If you don't like those type of rulings, which are basically as insane as can be, then why would you keep voting for the government that keeps appointing liberal judges who don't mind finding ways to skirt around the legislation that's been passed? So keep voting liberal and keep getting the results of that. The situation, for those of you who hear about this with Canada's First Nations, another Cree Nation now, First Nations, in this case, the Cree Nation up in northern Alberta, they're being evacuated because the water system has completely collapsed. The storage system for water has completely collapsed. The population there on that particular land owned by the Northern Ontario Cree, they're being all bailed out. And now they had a situation a number of years ago on the same same settlement, First Nations settlement with E. coli in the water. Folks, billions, untold billions are going into, this year it was 32 billion going to First Nations. And I believe what we're about to see is an unraveling of these gigantic costs where you get no results. There's no excuse for First Nation communities not to have water, not to have predictable water sources, and we still see problems. This year they're getting $32 billion for infrastructure, and people are already saying it's going to waste. I think this is going to usher in, as a possibility, a new age of auditors, a new group of forensic auditors who go beyond just reporting if money was spent. They actually get right out there, as you've been seeing it on the news in the Minnesota situation with billions and billions of dollars of fraud. People are just showing up at the places where the service is being delivered and finding out that nobody's there, whether it's a daycare center or a healthcare center. Watch for the situation that should happen if money that is supposed to be going to the improvement of the lives of First Nations people, that's being drained away, that's being deflected, that's being fraudulently used. You need to find that out, and we need to send some of these forensic teams in there to do it. Well, gas prices are going to go up in Canada, and part of the reason that the Liberal government got elected was their promise to get rid of that carbon tax, but they've brought it back in with some new regulations. And so this year, the prediction is there's going to be a 7% per liter increase for our American friends who are listening and watching right now. That's about a 30 cent, almost a 30 cent increase in terms of per gallon, 7 cents per liter. They say it's going to go up to as much as a 17% increase in the next 3 years. So again, we see Liberals allowing prices to continue to rocket up. Well, talk about rocketing up. You remember a few weeks ago I was saying keep an eye on the NFL team, the Houston Texans. Even though they started the season with 3 losses, they turned it around and they finished the season with 12-5, got into the playoffs where they knocked out some top contenders. Last week they just knocked out Pittsburgh. And one of the things that media is commenting, sometimes with a smile, sometimes they're exaggerated, but the quarterback, C.J. Stroud, in those famous post-game interviews, sitting up there with the ball cap on and answering questions, he spent more time talking about his faith and the importance of a faith in Jesus Christ than he did about the game itself. He made the point pretty clear, as we pointed out a few weeks ago, that he wasn't saying God is picking a side and who's going to win the game, but that he is taking it very seriously along with his classmates or the other players, making it very plain that they want to honor God whether the team wins or loses and in all circumstances, and they're thankful that they've got jobs, that type of thing. So watch what happens. Let's see if the faith journey continues for C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans, because Sunday night, tune that in. They're playing New England. If they win that game, then they're only one win away after that from getting into the Super Bowl. Well, kids are going back to the movies, in case you were worried about that or concerned. Gen Z attendance at movies in this last year up 25%. That's huge and very interesting when they're also being, they like the big screen. They like the fact, and the theaters that have the food delivered to you right there at your seat in the theater, they're loving that. But they're mainly saying, in terms of the exit interviews when they're coming out of the theaters, that they like going to the movie because it gives them a break, and especially males are saying this, gives them a break from doom scrolling all day long on TikTok and YouTube. And it's being pointed out that young men from anywhere from 14 up to 32 can be spending up to 6 hours a day just scrolling on YouTube, because as you know, that app is designed just to bring you things that really you like, that really grab your attention. So movies now being used as an antidote to get away from your screens. Folks, we'll see if it all continues. Thanks very much for joining. Watch next week and we'll see if the predictions on the big stories coming up are going to hold up. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in.